Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to go over some items related to the make ready of your rental property. Today we've got as our guest Barrett Kernon with the Greater Austin Residential Service Company. He has seen more properties than all of us probably combined, walking them, seeing the status, doing make readies. Greater Austin Residential Service Company does everything from make ready to sell for realtors, to make ready from tenant to tenant, to work Chick-fil-A's, homeowners associations, just a little bit of everything in Central Texas. They go from Waco all the way to San Marcos currently. I think they're expanding into San Antonio possibly next year. At least that's a target for them. So Barrett, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure to have you. My name is Matt Leshber. I'm with 1836 Property Management. This is our webinar series. Obviously today is June. And so we're going to talk over some make ready items to help you guys that are landlords today. If you have any questions, feel free to post those. I'm going to post those here. Hopefully talk to you guys as we go. Feel free to say hello, let us know where you're from, and we'll take it from there. Got some questions for Barrett today. Want to make sure if you guys have questions, we get those answered as well. So we do have another webinar coming up next month. We do these once a month on the first Wednesday. And the next one is going to be a couple property managers. While we are a property management company, I'm the owner of the company and the broker, so I don't do as much hands-on. And I think it's really important to talk to those managers to say, what do you wish that owners knew? Or what should owners know, whether they're self-managing or working for us as a client or working with us as a client and a partner, what's important so that you guys can really have a great relationship. So Barrett, if it's all right with you, we've got 30 minutes blocked out today to kind of just talk back and forth. If there's any questions, we can go from there. We'll try to be respectful of everybody's time today because this is their lunchtime. So let's jump into it. First question I've got for you is about the myth. There's a lot of landlords out there who think they need to make their property perfect. They've got to renovate, put in glass and granite and whatever that may be that's the latest trend. And then there's other people on the other end of the spectrum, which, you know, have houses in 1920 and you can see through the walls and see the light coming in. There's air conditioning vents leaking. There's no insulation. So what's functional? Let's just start off on a baseline. What do we consider to be functional for a tenant? Is it the high end that we need? Is it the door locks and so the state will leave us alone? What do you look at when you walk a property and say it's functional and it's appropriate for the tenant?
I think there's a happy medium there. As long as plumbing, HVAC, and electrical is all functioning properly, that's good. And then the other two big things I would say is paint and flooring. As long as everything's up to date and there's not holes in the walls, fresh coat of paint, as long as everything looks good when you walk in. Like main thing is, let me go on a tangent, that when you walk into a house for rent, you almost want it to look like a house that you're going in that's up for sale. People are going in there, they're living there, they treat it as their own, so they want it to feel like their own and feel like somewhere they want to live.
Absolutely. So is functional really the goal? Like, for instance, paint on the wall is functional, but there's a huge difference between paint and paint. I don't know if that's obvious, but everyone's definition of it's painted is completely different. So, you know, just give us some verbiage or some adverbs and adjectives. Like, what do you look at when you're walking in and looking at a paint? Now, obviously, or maybe it's not obvious to our audience, make ready to sell is kind of up here. Make ready for a tenant is still here, but not quite here. There is a relationship between the quality of the property you deliver and the quality of the tenant you attract. And you've walked, I can't even count how many properties just to see the condition, whether you did the work, you didn't do the work, to assess it. What are you seeing out there, and is functional really here, or how does that measure on the bar? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you got it right. The for sale's way up here, but for lease and ready to rent, it's right below it. You might change some things, like you might not do granite countertops in a house you're getting ready for lease, but you can still put in new countertops. As far as paint, right now neutral color is the biggest thing for sale and lease. You don't want to walk into a house with bright pink walls in either situation. But I would say the biggest thing functional would be neutral color walls, fresh coat on the doors and trim. It's good for maintenance in the long run too, because when people do move in with fresh coat on the doors and trim, you're gonna be able to clean them and it'll last longer rather than going in with stuff that's already worn down that could get damaged.
So what you're saying is investing that money up front to get these to a good position with uniform color throughout will actually save the owner money as they go forward because they can touch it up. What kind of paints do you guys use?
We use Sherwin-Williams.
So why do you use Sherwin-Williams versus having it mixed in Home Depot North, Home Depot South, Home Depot Central, and trying to match those?
So Home Depot does not do a great job at matching their paint. So you could go in there one day, ask for a certain color match, go in the next, or even go into a different location the same day, and it's not going to match perfect. Sherwin-Williams has it down to a science. They have everything in their systems, and they're generally right on point when it comes to matching. So when you go to do touch up after tenants move out, you're able to match that paint rather than if you go to Home Depot, can't match the paint, and then you have no other choice but to do a full paint if you want it on par.
Absolutely. So I think we kind of blended in here a little accidentally, and we went from functional to the painting section of our talk today. But hey, we're already there, so why not do it? We've kind of touched base. Functional, if I may paraphrase, sounds more like it's not just functional. If the door locks, but there's still a huge gap in the door that's letting air through, that tenant's not going to feel safe. There's going to be rodents that come in. It's just not a good solution. So I think the takeaway from the functionality part, if I can kind of paraphrase from you, is that make ready to sell may be here, make ready to lease may be here, but just functional is not necessarily cutting the mustard because you've got other implications that happen which are going to cause you to go back, and you're going to be the one that gets those maintenance calls from out-of-state managers who are thinking they're going to manage an Austin property from California, and they don't understand why the tenant's upset, and you keep going back time and time again to deal with these small items. So is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So let's talk about painting then, since we're on the topic. If I call you and I'm a consumer and I go, hey, I've got this rental property in Austin, whether I'm a property manager or I'm a landlord, self-managing, whoever it may be, I need you to paint the house. What is your question going to be for that person?
So my first question is going to be the square footage.
Okay.
What items do you want painted? Are you going to get just the walls painted, doors, trim, ceiling, kitchen cabinets, vanities? You could do it all, or you could do just the walls. It just depends on what you're looking to do. Then I'm going to ask what kind of finish you want to go with the paint. I'll suggest what we usually use, which is eggshell on walls, flat on ceilings, and then we'll do a semi-gloss on the trim, doors, and windowsills.
So all kind of different finishes, but also kind of different paint as well, right? You're not using the same paint on the walls as the trim.
No, yeah, so it's all different. So we'll use oil base on trim and doors, which is more, gets rugged. It stands up to stuff a lot better. It lasts a lot longer, and you can clean it.
My guess is that the average consumer who has a family, a full-time job, headaches of their own in life that just normally happen, and they're managing 1, 2, 3 rental properties remotely or locally, they're going to call you and they're just going to say, hey, I need this painted. And you're going to go through all these questions with them, and they're going to say, wow, I didn't understand, like painting is not just painting. Do you run into that a lot, that consumers kind of feel like the word paint is all inclusive versus it being multifaceted?
Yeah, definitely. So when we bid a job, we have to be very specific on what we mean, because we've run into in the past where when you say, all right, this is an interior paint and it includes this, they look at it and say, well, why doesn't it include the ceilings for that price, the trim and doors for that price? They just kind of sometimes don't grasp that painting is a lot more than just walking and throwing paint on the walls.
So I'm inferring from what you're saying that it's going to take you, if you're doing different types of paint on different sections of the house. Now, let's say you're doing the walls. Well, that means you have to put tape on the trim so that you can differentiate the walls. Okay, so you can't paint the trim if you've got tape on it. And if the paint on the walls is wet, you can't put trim over the wet paint to then do it even same day. So you're talking about multiple days of work on site, not just whether or not you want it done.
No, yeah, I mean, for a 2,000 square foot house, you're talking for just the walls between 3 and 4 days. But when you add the trim and doors on, you're going to 6 days because you have to wait for everything to dry. Just because you can paint it in 8 hours doesn't mean everything's going to dry. You can go in and prep everything else and start painting again right away.
So what are the stages? You got to prep it. What else?
So first,
you're going in,
yeah.
taping it.
Mm-hmm. So we'll walk in. We'll do all our prep on the walls, trim and doors, so any repairs, drywall repairs. Then we'll go in, make sure everything's covered properly. If we're doing the walls first, cover all the trim. Go in, we'll put in 2 coats on the walls. Once that's done, we'll remove all the paper, everything taped off. Then we'll have to cut in all the walls because when it's taped off, you're not able to go straight to it. So you go in with a brush
You
and
just
cut
work
it
with
in.
one strip. You don't just wipe over it and it's done.
Yeah, no. So once you cut it in, you'll go and do the trim and doors. And after that, usually you have to go back and cut in some spots again because no one's perfect when it comes to hitting a 4-inch wide piece of baseboard all around a house. So you have to go in and cut around the walls a little more sometimes.
To kind of clean it up, make it a good finished product.
Yeah. It's got to be perfect when it's done.
I would think before you even get that, though, let's say you're doing trim. Aren't you having to either wipe it, sand it, or doing something with that trim to make the new paint adhere? Because if the house is dirty, it's had a tenant living in it for 3 years, you're not just going to walk in there and pull out a paintbrush.
Yeah, no, if it's not clean, it could take 2 days to prep, trim, and doors before you're able to paint it. Just because, like you said, you're going to have to go in. If it's not clean, you're going to have to clean everything, wipe it down again. Then you're going to have to go in and sand. And depending on what kind of paint you're going with, you can't go with oil base over latex. So you have to sand that down and put a special primer on and then put on the oil-based paint.
So there's quite a bit of facets to this, I think, that's the overreaching point, is that it's not just putting paint on a single wall. It's making sure wall A and wall B actually match in color, because the paint could be mixed differently. Then it's what about the trim? Then it's what about the ceiling? It's the prep before, it's the taping, it's the corrections afterwards to make sure it's done right. And I'm sure that you guys have a couple colors that you use generally in your paint.
Yeah. So generally some neutral colors right now that we use is Sherwin-Williams, Accessible Beige, and then there's agreeable gray and a worldly gray, the other two that we use.
Why did you select those colors? Because if I remember correctly, Sherwin-Williams database of colors is a palette like this wide with paper, like 400 different palettes in it. So why did you come to those?
So right now, those are the neutral colors that are in. The grays are in big time. I would say last year the beiges were more popular than the gray, but right now gray's making a big comeback. So just like with cabinets, a lot of people are going white or they're going dark. There's no real in between. Just kind of what's popular right now and what people are looking for.
Well, and if you are trying to lease it, you figure that popularity will hopefully last you at least a handful of years. It's not going to be just today. It won't last you 10 years, but it'll at least get you through that tenancy, maybe the next tenancy, a touch up in between. And then if trends change, you may have to repaint anyway. I just don't see us ever going to purple and lime green as a neutral color, if you will. So I think we're going to be different shades of that gray and tan, kind of as we work through things. So let's talk about one more thing on the painting topic, because time's clicking away and folks are on their lunch hour. Closets. Or closet. If I called you and said, hey, I want you to paint my house, are closets included?
Only if specified. So that's something we'll go down that checklist on with you and say, would you like closets included? A lot of people, especially when we do occupied houses, they skip closets. One, because they don't get banged up, and they generally look fine. And two, if it's occupied, that's where they're going to put all their stuff while we're painting.
Occupied versus vacant houses. Talk to me about price. Not numbers, but how much more difficult is it to deal with a occupied house versus a vacant one?
It's probably twice as hard to do, just because if you go in, there's stuff all over the walls. Just think of your house alone and think of everything that's hanging on the walls. Think of all the furniture that's pushed up against the walls. And then imagine somebody having to come in, everybody has to pull everything off, push everything back into the middle of the room by room as you do it. It just, the labor alone is going to add 2-3 days.
So you think it's going to take you at least, I'm kind of extrapolating from what you're saying, but 50% more to paint around things than if the home was just vacant.
Yeah, I'd say closer to around 30, but definitely it's going to take a lot more time.
Now let's talk about customer satisfaction, because I'm going to take a guess that when you get a bunch of painters in a place and a bunch of wet paint, if that house is occupied, there is almost no chance your guys are going to leave the entire property after a week's worth of wet paint walking around without something spilled somewhere on something.
Hmm. So it does happen, but we try to take those precautions to where all of our guys have their own checklist laminated that they have on site. So that's one of the things they go through, walk everything, make sure there's no paint anywhere. If there is a little paint on the ground, they can clean it up. It's not a big deal. But a good thing about having that owner there for the occupied houses is they can walk that house with the owner 2-3 times to get their approval before they do leave, just to make sure everything's good.
Now, knowing what I do know about working on occupied versus vacant houses, let's talk transparency here. When a house is vacant and an owner's out of town, typically you'll have before photos you share with them because they're out of state, and you'll have final photos, and you'll have someone walk the property to verify and then take those final photos, right? So here was the job specs before, here's what it looked like prior, so you approve that because of the condition. After the job was completed, here are photographs proving that the job was completed correctly, shared with the owner, and it was walked by someone for quality control. That's a start and finish walk. What is it like when an owner is living in a house and watching the workers every day?
It can be difficult for sure, because owners, or some people, just think when a guy or our crew leaves the job site every day, it's going to look like a finished product, or they go wall by wall, but they do it in sections. So I'll get phone calls all the time that we're behind schedule, the wall's not done, this and that. And I always have to tell them, just trust me, that finish date that we gave you is when we're going to be done. But if you go and walk a job every day the whole time, you're going to find stuff that's not done because we're not done. But people would have that mindset when they walk in that they want to see stuff done, or they want to see this much product or being done every day. But it's just not the case. There's a lot of stuff they don't see that it's being done, that they don't really understand.
Well, and it's not that they couldn't understand it, isn't it? Just that
Yeah.
it's part of the process, and that's not what they do for a living. And so
Yeah,
some
exactly.
things that you may think happen, there may be an order of operations, which that's just not what they do. I mean, you go to the
Yeah,
dentist and you don't kind of ask him his order of operations. You assume that there's 10 things you don't know, and he better know.
exactly.
So I think with painting, it's the same, and I don't know that everybody gets that. There's just more to it than, do I have the paint and am I going up and down the wall? And sometimes it takes a moment for that finished product to come out where the consumer is really pleased with it. But you guys, what I'm hearing from you as well is that you have on your checklist, and this will be for your other parts of the property as well, you have items that you agree to do, but you're also discussing with the customer up front things that are not included. So they can have a choice of whether they want it included, don't want it included, but that way everybody's on the same page, so that when you get to the end result, it's yes, we agreed to these, we both agreed that these were not included, and is the end result exactly what we agreed upon? Is that kind of how you guys do it?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say the biggest thing we run into is I'll go in and I'll bid a property, bid a house, and I'll bid to do the walls and the trim and doors separate. Usually they say no to the trim and doors if they just want a quick fix in this.
Sure, and
So
it's
we,
expensive. I mean,
yeah,
honestly.
it's fine. So we go in, we put a fresh coat on the walls, and then everything on the trim and doors just pops out twice as bad, and it just looks terrible because you have something brand new sitting right
Contrast
next
between
to
the
something.
two.
Yeah. So that's a big thing we run into, that we have listed, does not include trim and doors because you decide not to, and then half the time we end up going back and having to do it again for them.
So I would think in that instance, because you've got a crew set, I mean, let's be honest, today there was news that came out that said for the first time in so many years, there was officially more available jobs than people to work them. So that tells me that because you're in the construction industry, you have more work than you can deliver labor for. So I
Yeah.
would assume you have your labor pool booked, like this week you're here, next week you're here. So if an owner comes in and says, I don't want that done, I just want the walls done. And then at the end of Friday, that week's done, the walls look beautiful. They go, oh, can we add the trim? Well, there's no more labor to
Hmm.
reschedule and have back there on Monday. And if they're on site, they can also do prep work for other parts of it, which they might not be able to do. They would have to do double trips to the property. Is that kind of putting it together? I don't know if that was real clear, but is that the
Yeah.
gist of it?
Yeah. No, definitely.
Awesome. So if an owner is going to consider it, they really need either do it or don't do it, but just be aware that there's going to be significant delays, not because you don't want to get the job done, but because there's no labor. And in the
Yeah.
summertime in Austin, I mean, good luck. People are booked up 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance.
Yep.
I mean, I know you had a flooring issue come up that there's not even flooring available. So let's go off to flooring because we're kind of running down in time and let's keep it going. Talk to me about standards and things that owners should know when it comes to flooring and rental properties. What should they do? What should they not do? What do you see out there?
The biggest thing I would make sure whoever you do hire to do your flooring does the correct prep work. If anything needs to be floated out or leveled, just make sure it's done. You can walk into houses sometime, especially if you go with the peel and stick vinyl, that you can just see waves in the floor, which no one wants to see. That's just from improper prep work. The big things right now we see are the vinyl planks. I recommend
Okay.
them to almost any rental owner just because
Why do
they
you
look
recommend them? Why do you love them?
price wise, they're a lot cheaper than wood floors. They look like wood floors. They look great. I think I'd put them in my own house. And they're very durable. So with the tenants, the wear and tear doesn't tear them up as bad. And they can be replaced easily as well.
So when you're talking about vinyl planks that appear to look like wood.
Yeah.
Okay, so from memory, there's a few different types of those. There's a pick and steel, excuse me, pick and steel. There's a stick and peel, which you mentioned. There are ones that are plastic and kind of interlock with each other but float.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what type do you like and why?
Honestly, we probably do 50-50 on both of those. Uh, the floating ones are better for if you have a flood or something like that. They can go in, they can pop them all out, let everything dry back, and then if they do need to reset those or get other ones, it's pretty simple when it comes to the install of it. The glue down's a little less expensive. Labor wise, it's cheaper, and I think they basically look exactly the same. Right now, I'm a fan of the glue down.
Okay, and you don't like, so they used to call a flooring pergo. You're not putting any pergo in today.
No, we don't do any of that.
What about wood floors? Do you do many of the wood floors?
Honestly, no, we don't do a ton of wood floors. The only time we
What do you
really
think
see them are
people
in
are?
high,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize for
just
interrupting you.
in high-end houses. People want to spend 20 grand on a floor, but the vinyl looks just like wood, and it's really good for rental homes.
But what I'm hearing from you is people in general are getting away because that was the thing at one point. Everybody wanted wood floors,
Hmm.
but you're not doing those as frequently anymore at all. So it tells me the demand on those is kind of down. The alternatives are just better.
Yeah, I would think so.
I've
And
seen some planks out there that are ceramic planks that you can
mhm,
put tiles down, and they really look like the wood, and they're
yep.
indestructible. Are you guys putting those in?
Yeah, we just did one actually. We're finishing one up, and it looks just like wood floor. It's just the tile planks.
Well, you're not going to get it wet and worry about it.
Hmm.
It's indestructible.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about real quick before we move to the next section. Carpet. Do you put carpet in a lot of these properties? You've got rentals and you've got make ready to sell. Well,
Hmm.
should I say rentals, make ready to sell? Are you putting carpet in these? What are you doing with carpet pouring?
So we will. Uh, when I walk a property, I usually try to look and see where the carpet is. A lot of old houses have carpet in living room, dining room, areas like that. So when I walk in and I do a bid, I'll usually suggest that they put vinyl plank in those areas and only put carpet in the bedrooms. That's kind of where it's leaning towards and what I recommend to everyone. Just because as far as the tenants going in and out, the wear and tear, the vinyl plank's going to last 5 times longer than that carpet's going to last you, especially on stairs and dining rooms, living rooms, especially if you have kids.
So you are still putting a little bit of carpet in. Is that money calling?
Yeah.
You're still putting a little bit of carpet in, but mostly just in the bedrooms. Obviously, no wet areas, but it's becoming limited compared to what it used to be.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So, okay, so we've touched on flooring. We're about at 26 minutes in. We want to kind of keep people moving along. If you guys have any questions, again, please post those. We're happy to answer any questions we have for you. And if you're watching this later because you got this sent to your email address and you couldn't make it at lunchtime, feel free to email us directly. We'll give you our information if you have any follow-up questions after this is over as well. Let's talk about curb appeal. Everything on the exterior. So you guys do, again, make ready to sell. You do make ready tenant A to tenant B. Talk to me about curb appeal. What makes a house pop? What is important to your high-end realtors? What's important to tenants? What's cost effective?
I would say the biggest thing is landscaping, exterior painting, and if you do have any kind of flower beds or anything like that, just making sure they're cleaned up, which falls under landscaping. But landscaping is probably the biggest, especially when it comes to rentals. And as long as the landscaping looks good when you pull up to the house, you can get past the exterior paint if maybe it needs a little work. But that first impression of the landscaping when you walk up is big.
So what are you doing? When you say landscaping, I would assume that encompasses everything from flower beds to shrubs and bushes to the grass or lack of grass to trees.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what else. We'll find something else to throw in there. Talk to me about each one of those. So let's start with the flower beds. What are you doing with the flower beds, shrubs, things like that?
So flower beds and shrubs. Shrubs we're just trimming up. We're making it look good. It looked like almost it was just planted, just trimmed up real nice. Flower beds, we're making sure everything's cleaned out. We're putting in mulch, and then we'll put in a couple of native plants, maybe some lantanas that give it a little color. But mulch is a big thing. Even if you don't want to put in flowers, just having mulch makes a huge difference than just having a bare flower bed.
Yeah, I agree. And every year that stuff kind of gets dingy and the mulch you get from the store is colored. And so it looks really defined when you put that color in the flower bed. It makes the whole thing kind of look clean, even though it's mulch.
Yeah.
Okay, so shrubs are trimming, flower beds are mulching. Obviously, weed removal is kind of assumed at this point.
Yeah.
What are you doing for the yards? Grass, no grass, xeriscaping? What's the trend?
So in Texas here, a lot of people do xeriscaping, but we do a lot of landscaping as far as add new sod in yards. I'm a big fan of big grass yard. But I think when it comes to selling a house, if you're in a little rural area, sod's fine. But if you're more modern towards downtown is where you're going to see those xeriscaping.
Okay, and when it comes to the sod, what type of grass are you using? What are
Oh, there's a couple different. We can use St. Augustine, Bermuda, and Zoysia are the 3 that we mostly use.
Okay. Zoysia is a hybrid that they kind of developed, the older traditional. People are going to have to water those, so I would assume you're looking at more of a sale on those when people really put in fresh. You're not going tenant A to tenant B and putting a lot of sod in, are you?
No, not a lot.
Yeah, it's more flower bed cleanup, things like that. The xeriscaping. I think everybody likes that, but is kind of scared to pull the trigger on it because it's such a massive change. You know, the traditional is, doesn't everybody want a green front yard? Isn't that the American dream? And then you look at the xeriscaping and, well, it checks the boxes on environmental friendly. It's no more of a problem with watering.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not having to maintain it as much. What would I won't hold you to this at all, but let's say you've got a cookie cutter, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, track house. a normal front yard, and let's not even talk about the backyard. Let's just say the front yard. You're going to pull the grass out of there, lay down your plastic. You're going to bring in rocks. You're going to put in native plant. What is a ballpark price? Just give me within the thousands.
I would say between 2 and 3,500, depending on how extensive you go.
So it's not $10,000.
No.
And to put sod in that area, I mean, you correct me, but I'm going to say by the time you buy it and you have the labor and everything else, you're looking at $1,000 off the starting blocks.
Yeah.
So installing that xeriscaping may actually save you money long term, whether it's on watering, whether it's on maintaining those plants or resodding or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last thing on the landscaping, trees. What do you do with trees?
Trimming, keeping them properly trimmed is a big deal, especially with any trees that are near your home. We go to a lot of homes that have damage on the roof and the siding just because the trees weren't kept up and trimmed.
So people just enjoy the beautiful trees and then they don't trim those annually. They brush the side of the house. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So I would think that's a good opportunity for you guys to have to go back and repaint because they just simply didn't trim the trees.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, and from my side, I've seen shingles and roofing damage frequently as well because that tree is in the wind all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take much over time to really kind of tear up the roofing materials. When you want to take a photo as well, from my side of things, we really look to you guys to help us frame that photo because so many homes you go to with beautiful trees, you can't even see the home. So when we want to do a marketing presentation, or take photos or do videos or anything else, if I can't see the house, it's really difficult to market the trees. They would be beautiful, but I need that framed. And then also we found that if you don't trim them, they kind of grow into bushes instead of tall. Is that what you guys see as well?
Definitely.
Yeah. Anything else we're missing on the landscaping? Do you guys, fencing, power washing, clean up driveways, garbage removal? What do you guys do with all that stuff?
Power washing, I would say something that's kind of overlooked. Going in power washing a driveway or even power washing the exterior of a house can make a huge difference. Just having that bright, clean driveway as soon as you pull up is a big difference than if you pull up to a black driveway that hasn't been pressure washed in 20 years.
So it sounds to me kind of like the contrast you were talking about between the walls and the trim, where you don't see the trim pop until everything else looks good. So all of a sudden the landscaping looks clean, and then that sidewalk has been collecting mold and mildew from runoff over the years. The driveway's got drippings from vehicles, and you get the fresh paint on the house. Well, now the driveway doesn't look good. So once again, I keep circling back to this, but it sounds like do it right the first time, because otherwise the labor's gone. And now I've got to reschedule 2 weeks later. Well, then that's pushing photographers, sales, tenants, everything else. So, include it. That seems to be what you're saying, is include it in the initial bid and get it all done right, or just plan on spending the money on vacancy and delays later.
Yeah, exactly. And we try to bunch everything together as far as everything we think needs to be done, and then the owner can choose what they'd like to do. But half the time they come back once, like you said, once half it's done, they really notice the other half that still needs to be done.
So you're making recommendations when you walk the property. You're not just going, what do you want, and here's the price. You're saying, hey, I hear you, but I recommend these things, and here's why. You're welcome to decline them.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems to me like you're a good source of information considering the number of houses you walk on any given day compared to the average person out there. So let's go down to kind of the last part of this, and we'll keep it rolling in case you have any questions. Let's talk about cost. How long do these jobs take? Talk to me about price of materials, the labor, and then why should they choose a company that's not the cheapest company? Obviously no one wants to go out and shop for the most expensive. Hey, do you charge more than everybody else? Yes. Oh, well then I want to, that's just ridiculous. But what's the difference? Let's talk price. This is really where people call you and say, what do you charge? They don't call and say, what can you do? So that's the first question I'm sure you get every day, just all day long. What do you charge? What do you charge? Talk to me about the difference. So what's the difference in the time, the materials, the labor quality, standing behind your work, all that?
Yeah, so I'd say we're not the cheapest company, but we're not the most expensive. I'd say we're definitely one of the most reliable. If we say we're going to do something, we're going to get it done. A lot of people in this industry run into people who answer their phone one day, they get a check, and then they disappear off the face of the earth, even when there's still stuff to do or stuff to come back that you find. Because when you paint a house and somebody moves in, they might find some stuff here and there that still need to be touched up. And if somebody calls us saying, hey, I need this done, we're back out there and within the next couple of days just to make sure we get it done. As far as painting price goes, we run anywhere from $1.20 to $1.50, depending on the house per square foot for the walls. And then for a full paint on walls, trim, doors, ceilings, and windowsills, it's around $2 to $2.20 square foot per the house. That price changes because houses are completely different. There's some houses that have straight walls all the way throughout, and then there's some that have all kinds of weird shapes and designs and cut-ins.
Two-story walls and everything else you can't reach.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as height goes, like you said, there's some houses with 20-foot ceilings. There's the standard 8-foot, 10-foot ceilings, which obviously take a lot less labor, less materials. You're not going to need scaffolding if you're painting ceiling on a 10-foot ceiling rather than if you're painting a 24-foot ceiling.
Yeah, you're having to bring in extra equipment just to accomplish the job.
Yeah.
I mean, obvious cost there. So labor, it sounds like labor. I mean, obviously paint's not cheap if you use good quality paint. You're not using the 4 coats and it still looks like milk paint.
Yeah.
But labor, it sounds like, is your biggest expense by far.
Yes, definitely.
It just takes what I'm hearing from you is it takes a lot longer to get the work done than people anticipate.
Yeah. I mean, to cover up a house good, it's going to take you at least a full day, day and a half. You just don't go in and start painting. Yeah, that's just to tape it off.
Yeah. See, I don't think anybody even is aware that that's a part of the job that requires prep and a lot of labor and time to get going. So why should they choose somebody that is not the cheapest? What are you cleaning up? Because it sounds like, I mean, honestly, it sounds like you're cleaning up other people's messes.
Yeah, I would say you don't choose the cheapest guy because if you take that middle tier guy, he's going to answer his phone. He's going to come back and get done when he's get done. There's a good chance that the cheapest guy might disappear on you. We get called to jobs all the time to come clean up after guys that just disappeared.
So anything else you want to add today? I think we're kind of approaching the end of our time today. Anything else you want to add that's great advice for people, whether it's getting those houses ready from tenant A to B or getting that house ready to sell? What do you think people need to know that they don't know?
I would encourage people to really get to know the people that are going to do the work. If I come out to bid a property, I'm going to give you a price to do everything. Knowing your contractor is a big deal, just because when you have that personal relationship, they're going to take care of you. They know you, you know them. You can call them, they're going to answer. I think that's a big deal that sometimes people overlook. That's the biggest thing I would say.
What would be a sign, obviously you can't put everybody in a basket and say this all makes sense, but what would be a sign of someone to avoid? Would it be like if hey, Joe Bill is a great contractor, so-and-so told me it's his cousin, you call him, what would be a red flag to avoid?
Big red flag would be somebody that says they're going to be to an estimate. They don't show up. They don't even call to let you know, or they call you the next day and say, oh, sorry, I got busy. That reflects in work a lot as far as people I've worked with in the past and what I've seen from other homeowners. Being like a man of your word, if you say you're going to be somewhere, if you say you're going to do something, and you don't let somebody at least know that you're not going to be there, I would say is a huge red flag.
So the other thing I kind of been noticing from my side of the table as we order work from our company is You're going to have one vendor who has people answer the phone, has voicemails, have systems. They actually do marketing or care about the image of their company. And then you're going to have others that you call who, well, they have a company name, but they don't even have their voicemail set up.
Yeah.
They may have a website, may not, but regardless of that, I called a vendor last week and the voicemail literally said, this voicemail box has not been set up. And I'm thinking to myself, good grief, if they don't answer their phone or they don't return emails, I don't even know how to get a hold of this person. And that's not somebody I want to entrust with $10,000, $20,000.
Yeah, no, you could go on Google and search landscapers or contractors, and I'd bet at least half of them phones don't have voicemails. They won't answer. Um, it seems like a red flag to me. We have somebody that's going to answer answer the phone when you call, and when they tell you somebody's going to call back, they're going to call you back. When somebody says they're going to be somewhere, they're going to be there. Or if in Austin, if they get caught in traffic, you're going to get a phone call and say, "Hey, this is what happened. This is where I am, and this is when I'll be there."
Absolutely. And so, last thing I'll leave kind of the consumer with here is insurance. So, in the state of Texas, I think, and I don't quote me on this, we're the only state in the union that does not require workers' comp insurance, which means you're going to be out there competing against some companies that are massive corporations that are paying that because they can. And you're going to be competing against a lot of men with a truck who don't care. And the middle is going to kind of be sparse because people are either big or small and they have a tough time. You guys do carry general liability insurance, right?
Yes, we do.
So I know that's kind of a 101 thing, but the guy in the truck doesn't have that. And I don't know that consumers honestly have the gumption to just ask, because it can be obtained by anybody,
Hmm.
but you have to pay the money to obtain it, which means you're actually investing in your business, investing in protecting your client, things like that. In Texas, we don't have to, you guys, excuse me, don't have to be bonded. So
Hmm.
really, I don't know of anybody other than maybe a builder that's bonded, but that's for different reasons. They have a lot
Yeah.
of money that's being loaned to them that are usually third party construction loans, things like that. So there's a reason. But yeah, you guys do carry insurance, and there's a bunch of other certifications. I'm sure the consumer can go into those on a phone call or email with you. But if they have any other questions, let's kind of wrap it up for everybody here. Where can people get a hold of you if they need anything to do with Make Ready currently in Austin or Central Texas?
Yeah, you can visit our website at www.garsc.com. That's GARSC.com. There's some contact forms there, our phone number. Um,
And you
those are
will
the
call them back
main
if they
ways.
call.
Yeah, if they call, well, most likely somebody's going to answer. So.
Yeah, or you'll at least return their call. The voicemail will be there. You're not going to disappear tomorrow. So, how,
No.
how many how many companies do you guys serve? How many clients do you have? I mean, talk to us about the number of people you serve. Do you have just like one client? Do you have two clients? Like, what's the client database you have, just so people have a scope of the fact that you're going to show up or not show up?
Yeah, I would say right now we currently work with between 10 and 15 different property management companies in Austin, and then another handful of real estate agents that work with us on the regular. But we do get calls from the general public daily. We keep adding on new property managers, new real estate agents. Um, we generally work with a lot of different people, which is a good thing for us, and it says that we're a reliable company. We're not just focusing on one customer, we're focused on everyone that comes to us.
Sounds good. And I think one big question is, are you able to say no to people that you can't make happy? Like if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Barrett, I want you to do something that you've never done. Are you able to tell them no if you can't do it right?
Yeah, I'll happily refer them to someone else, but sometimes we do say no.
Yeah, well, and that's healthy. That's not
Yeah,
insulting. That's not personal. If you don't feel that something is your area of expertise, you shouldn't be doing it.
yeah,
And you're going to get requests from across the board. So I think that's kind of underrated in society now. Everybody wants to get told yes all the time, and that's not necessarily healthy. Sometimes getting told no is a blessing, not a curse, and it's not
yeah,
personal for sure. So I think it's important that when people that are in business have the integrity to say, "Hey, look, I love you, I love the property. this is just not what we do. And so we want the best outcome for you. It means a lot, and it's the right thing. Sometimes people love it, sometimes they don't, but it's still the right answer. So
Yeah,
find you online, GARSC.com. If consumers want to find us online, my name again is Matt Leshber. I'm the broker owner of 1836 Property Management in Austin. We service from Hayes, Travis, Williamson counties, and hopefully expanding next year, but you can find us at 1836pm.com. That's the short route to us. If you have any questions for both of us, our contact information will hopefully be on this video for you. You can find us online. Let us know. Reach out. We're here to support you guys. We both serve the consumer. So we're not here to get your name on a contract. We're here to build a partnership and a relationship. Everybody that my company works with, such as Garsk and other vendors, has to have that philosophy. If people are out here just to close a deal, it's not a win-win. Win-lose situations are going to get you put out of business. And so I think I speak for Barrett, and I definitely speak for our company when we say we really want everybody happy, pleased, and we want that partnership. So we stay in contact with each other for years and can truly serve each other in a win-win fashion. So we'll wrap it up today. If you guys have any follow-up questions, you're welcome to post those now. I'll wait for you just a couple seconds. If you want to email us directly, feel free to do so. Our next webinar is going to be on Wednesday, July 11th. And once again, that is going to be with a couple property managers from 1836 in Austin, Texas. And those PMs are hopefully going to pull back the curtain and tell you things you wish you knew about managing a property, or things you wish you knew about how to work with a property manager. So we'll see how transparent we can get them to be without being too brash about it. But I think it's good that you get inside information into something so that you know what people feel like on the other side of the table instead of assuming and then having things go south. So thank you guys for joining us today. It was our pleasure to come to you. If you're watching this on a replay, again, we're always available for you. So Barrett, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate you joining us. I know we had to block out a lot of your time, and you're running around all day kind of like a chicken. So it means a lot you took the time for us, and we really appreciate you as a partner.
yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So contact us, guys, if you need us. Have a great rest of the month, and we look forward to seeing you once again on July 11th for our next webinar. Thanks.